Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into a topic that gets talked about a lot, often with this kind of romantic spin, entrepreneurship.
Right. Especially starting from scratch, from zero.
Exactly. No money, no connections, maybe not even a clear idea yet. It's the dream for so many, but the reality can be pretty harsh. Different from the hype.
Definitely.
So this whole deep dive, it's actually custom made for you. And our mission today really is to pull out the key pieces of advice, the surprising bits from what this millionaire entrepreneur shared.
We want to give you a shortcut sort of to understanding the raw truth and the practical steps for making it work when you're self-employed.
So get ready, because some common ideas about starting from zero, they might get flipped on our head today.
Yeah, a real reality check is coming.
Okay, so let's start right there, that reality check. When you first start out on your own, it feels like your boss is a total slave driver.
Right, except the boss is you, demanding like 16-hour days, pushing you constantly.
Yeah, and you end up just exhausted, half the time feeling like you have no clue what you're doing, and honestly, scared, lonely, super stressed out.
And what's really wild is what he says about those feelings. The fear, the loneliness, being overworked.
What's that?
He says if you're not feeling those things, you're weird.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, like that state, it's actually natural when you're running a small business, especially at the start.
So it's not a sign you're failing necessarily?
Nope. It's just the nature of it. And then you add in all the outside societal variables, basically everyone telling you you're going to fail. It's intense.
You really get a sense of how tough those early days are. But okay, there's some hope, right?
Oh yeah, there's good news. He's clear. It can get better.
And maybe the most crucial part, the hardest you ever work is when you first kick it off.
Exactly. That initial grind, it's laying the foundation. It doesn't stay that intense forever, hopefully.
So if it's that intimidating at the start, how do you even get past the fear? The fear that stops so many people before they even begin?
Well, the main technique he used, it's a mental exercise, a powerful one. He calls it playing out the worst case scenario in exquisite detail.
Facing the fear head on, basically.
Pretty much, really looking at it.
And he gives some really concrete examples of his own worst case, like, I'd apply to business school.
Right, and he figured he'd have this cool story anyway, because people tend to like entrepreneurs, even the ones who didn't make it big immediately.
True. He also thought, okay, I have plenty of friends who would let me sleep on the couch. That's practical.
Yeah, but then there was the really scary one for him.
Which was?
Going back to mom and dad's house with my tail between my legs. He said that was just the most horrifying thing he could imagine.
Ooh, yeah, I can see that.
But here's the interesting part. After really thinking through these worst case scenarios,
What did he find?
he realized, I can always get the job back.
Ah, okay, so the risk didn't seem quite as massive anymore.
Exactly. It felt significantly lower. Plus, he realized that doing this entrepreneurial thing, even if it didn't work out perfectly, only makes me more valuable.
Right, you learn so much. You get a cooler story than someone who just stayed put in a safe job.
Totally. And for him, there was this other driver too, a kind of now or never feeling.
How so?
He was young, right? No kids, no wife, no mortgage, fewer stakes.
Okay.
So he thought, if it's this hard now, it's going to be nearly impossible for me to do later when life gets more complicated.
That makes sense. That really pushed him to just take the plunge.
Yeah. Now, here's where the advice gets really interesting, maybe a bit counterintuitive.
Okay, I'm listening.
Before you even quit your job, the first step he suggests is make something a little bit better at the job you have right now.
Wait, really? That sounds like the opposite of what you'd do if you want to leave.
I know, it sounds counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But he argues it's absolutely vital for building that entrepreneurial mindset.
Okay, explain that. How does that work?
Well, he uses this great coffee shop example. Let's say you work there.
Right.
Instead of just doing your job, you actively try to give more to the business. Maybe go around, ask if people want another coffee, that sort of thing.
Okay, proactive.
But here's the key part. You actually note how much the business is making during your shift. Then track how much it makes after you start doing these extra things.
Ah, so you're measuring your impact.
Precisely. Then you create a little list of what you did, your experiments, basically. A mini case study. It shows you actually know how a business works and you want it to grow.
Even small stuff, like saying hi to people outside or handing out samples.
Yeah, small little changes. The core idea is learning to think like an owner, because having that ownership mindset, he says, transfers to ownership eventually.
Okay, I'm starting to see it. So you do this for a while, then what?
Then you go talk to the owner. But, and this is important, you go with no ask. at first.
No asking for a raise or anything.
Nope. Just a quick, hey, here's some stuff I've been trying. Seems to be working. Just want to show you.
How does he think the owner will react?
He says they'll be shocked because nobody's going to ever have done something like that. In that moment, you're already now the 1%. You've stood out.
Okay. Then you make the ask.
Yeah, maybe a few more weeks later. You go back and say, look, I've been doing these extra things, tracking the impact. I'd love to make some additional money. Is that possible? What does career progression look like here?
And what if they say no? Like, sorry, this is just a job. We don't do that.
Then he argues it's a bad company for someone with your drive. And that's your signal to start looking elsewhere.
Okay, that makes sense. It's a test for the company too.
Exactly. And when you do look elsewhere, you don't just have a boring resume. You have these case studies, real examples of your proactivity.
Showing you have both the capability and the desire.
That rare combo, that's what leads you towards actual ownership down the line.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. Thinking bigger picture now. He talks about different ways of thinking about business opportunities.
Yeah, it's a really interesting contrast he noticed. Growing up in LA, the business scene was all about cash flow.
Meaning?
How fast can we make money? How predictable is the profit? It was very immediate, very focused on how much cash right now.
Okay. And how is that different from what he saw later?
Well, when he got exposed to the Stanford business culture, it was totally different. The question wasn't just about cash flow, it was how big is that opportunity?
Like potential scale.
Exactly. Is this something that could potentially reach billions of people?
Yeah.
He said it was a totally different way of thinking.
More aligned with venture capital, maybe.
Yeah, that VC mindset of investing a lot of money early, trying to scale quickly, and then figuring out the detailed business model later.
So how does he reconcile these? What's the takeaway for someone starting from zero?
He boils it down to needing two main things for big success. First, find that big opportunity.
Okay.
Second, combine it with a strong personal brand and what he calls an elegant business model.
Personal brand. Does that mean you need millions of followers?
Not necessarily. He actually says getting maybe 5 to 50,000 followers within a high-value niche can be enough. If you're seen as a key person of influence in that space,
That can be enough to make serious money, like 7 figures.
that's what he suggests, yeah. If you pair it with that elegant business model,
What makes a business model elegant in this context?
one that lets you sell to anyone in the world and easily communicate your value globally.
Gotcha. So, big opportunity, personal brand, elegant model.
Those become your key to capital, your key to talent, and your key to customers. Powerful combination.
Okay, this next point really jumped out at me. Something he noticed consistently from meeting lots of billionaires.
Let me guess. Speed.
You got it. The same idea of speed over and over again.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Why is speed so crucial at that level?
Well, he quotes Bill Perkins, the investor. Perkins apparently said something like, "I am not smarter than anybody else or richer. I just move faster."
Right. And the idea is, while other people are still just pondering an idea, Perkins has already made a move, made 3 mistakes, and found a better way.
So speed equals faster learning, faster iteration.
Exactly. It's not just about being busy. It's about accelerating the learning curve through action.
So the direct advice for you, the listener, is pretty blunt then.
Yeah, you're waiting too long.
He makes a distinction between just thinking about stuff, mental masturbation, he calls it.
Yes. Versus actually taking action.
It's about applying a kind of scientific process, isn't it?
Totally. Trial, error, trial, error, trial, error. Do it as quickly as possible with as little cash as possible.
And don't wait for the perfect moment, like New Year's or something.
No. He says January 1 can start today for you. Get a head start 30, 40 days ahead of everyone else who is waiting.
Because the answer to should I wait is?
Almost always. No. Just start. You'll make some mistakes, but you'll learn a lot.
Okay, moving on. He talks about this phase that sounds, well, pretty awful. The treadmill stage.
Yeah. We've all been there, I think. You're just running from crisis to crisis, always wearing the fireman's hat.
No time to think beyond the immediate problem right in front of you.
Exactly. Not doing any thought past the moment. And it just creates this feeling of chaos.
Which everyone feels, right? Customers, your spouse, you.
Yeah. And you're not getting any real traction, just spinning your wheels.
So how do you get off the treadmill? How do you level up?
Well, he says the solution sounds very obvious, very primitive, very simple, but it's exactly how you level up.
Okay. What is it?
2 things mainly: time management and team building.
Right. So actually blocking out time to think bigger picture.
Yes. Set out blocks of time to think about something other than the flavor of the moment, the crisis of the moment. Get strategic.
And the team building part.
Start thinking about adding even just a few key ones. Key team members. People who can help make money or make the product or deliver the service.
You can get this off of my shoulders. Delegate.
Precisely. It sounds basic, but that's the path out.
And part of that strategic thinking involves asking better questions, doesn't it?
Huge point. Instead of getting bogged down in stupid games like questions that don't really matter, elevate the question.
Ask things
like, what would it take for me to be number one in this field? Or what would it take for us to lead this market?
Bigger, bolder questions.
Yeah. And he says the answers are often not as crazy as you'd think. It forces you to think differently, to solve for it with the resources you have, or figure out how to get resourceful.
Okay, now let's tackle this idea about, well, ideas themselves. He challenges a really common brainstorming rule.
Yeah, the whole there's no such thing as a bad idea thing you hear in big companies.
Right. He says that's wrong. His framework is different. More harsh.
More realistic, maybe. His view is every idea is bad. We just don't know why they're bad yet.
Whoa. Okay, so start from the assumption it's flawed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this ties into what he calls the single worst thing you can do as an entrepreneur.
Which is?
To fall in love with your idea.
Don't get too attached.
Definitely not. He gives this funny, vivid image. Someone sees a dog throwing up.
Okay, random.
And immediately their mind builds this incredibly ornate business around it. Then they add cats too, and then giraffes. All based on this one feeling, this one initial spark with no reality check.
Right. We've all seen people do that, get carried away.
So the antidote, you have to nip that in the bud.
Yeah.
Ask yourself, how can I quickly, cheaply, and easily collide this idea with a real person?
Get it out of your head and into the real world fast.
Yep. And don't even aim for a minimal viable product or MVP at first. Aim for unviable.
Unviable, like intentionally bad.
Not bad, just super basic. Quick, cheap, down and dirty.
You used the early Netflix example, right?
Yeah, brilliant example. To test the core idea, can we even mail DVDs reliably? Reed Hastings literally had to turn the car around and mail a CD to himself.
Just to see if it would arrive intact and on time.
Exactly. If the CD arrived broken or took weeks, okay, premise flawed. Great, on to the next one. That's the unviable test. Minimal effort, maximum learning on the core risk.
And then there was that university student story with the clothing sharing idea.
Oh yeah, that one's powerful. She had these big plans, right? Drop out of college, raise money, hire a team, build an app.
All based on the idea.
All based on the idea in her head. And his suggestion for testing it. So simple.
Just a piece of paper, a marker, and a piece of tape.
That's it, right? Would you like to borrow my clothes? Tape it to her dorm door.
And see what happens. So low tech.
But think what she learns. First, does anyone even knock? That's step one validation.
Right. Basic demands.
Then, if they do, she instantly hits real problems. Fit issues, style clashes. How does she feel when her favorite blouse comes back stained or torn?
Practical stuff. Costs. Like dry cleaning.
All of it. She'd learned so much for nothing except for her time.
She'd actually know what you're dropping out of school for, what the real challenges are.
Exactly. She'd understand the real metrics, acquisition cost, lifetime value, CAC, LTV, the actual demographic, all from a piece of paper on her door.
Instead of building a whole app first.
That's the entrepreneurial key he's hitting on. You have an idea, quickly, cheap, and easy, test it, find out it's ridiculous, abandon it, go on to the next one. Iterate fast.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground on starting from zero. Let's recap the big takeaways.
All right. First, embrace that early struggle. The fear, the loneliness, the crazy hours, and it's kind of natural, not necessarily failure.
And conquer that fear by really analyzing the worst case scenario. Usually it's not as bad as you think, right? The risk is lower.
Right. And then that counterintuitive bit. Build the ownership mindset now in your current job. Create those mini case studies. It makes you incredibly valuable.
Then, when you do launch, think big opportunity, not just quick cash. Combine it with a personal brand, even a niche one, and an elegant, scalable business model.
And speed. Prioritize speed. Move fast, make mistakes, learn faster than everyone else. Don't just sit around thinking.
Get off that treadmill by managing your time better, blocking out strategic thinking time, and starting to build a team, even a small one, to delegate.
Ask bigger questions. What would it take to be number one? Challenge yourself.
And finally, treat every idea as probably bad until proven otherwise. Test it ruthlessly, quickly. Cheaply aim for unviable validation before falling in love.
Don't fall in love with the idea. Fall in love with testing the idea.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so as we finish up, here's a final thought for you to chew on. Think about an idea you have right now, maybe one you're getting a little too excited about, falling a bit in love with. Ask yourself, what is the absolute quickest, cheapest, easiest, maybe even slightly unviable test you could run, like today, to slam that idea into reality?